I got interested in signs because of my own background. I'm Cherokee on my mother's side, and Native Americans, as well as Native people throughout the world, all acknowledge the power and the potency of signs. In fact, in ancient times, the course of the tribe would depend on those individuals who could reach into the unseen realms to gain a sign, to know when to move, when to hunt, when to be still, when to go to war. And it occurred to me, as I've spent time in Native cultures, I've spent time with the Aborigines in Australia and the Maoris in New Zealand, and a small amount of time with the Zulus and Baputeswana, as well as within my own culture, that we have lost that ability that Native people have. And listening to the signs is being able to listen to what I call the whispers of the universe, that in every moment the world around you is giving you messages, and those messages can help you be at the right place at the right time. And to Native people, they took the form of, the way the winds blew, the way the birds flew. But in modern times, there are equally as valid and potent ways that we can access those signs just through the world around us, even being, inside this room. There are signs here for us. When you're waiting in line at the grocery store, there's signs. When you're driving on the freeway, there's signs. And so the book I wrote is about how to discover these signs and how to use them so that your life is more in balance. If something appears to you 3 times, something that seems unusual, or there's a seeming coincidence around those same times, listen to that. I'll give you an example. I was driving down the freeway and I saw a woman changing a tire. And, well, that happens. And a little bit later I saw a billboard, and the billboard said, "Have you checked your tires?" Well, it's a coincidence. But then a little bit later I turned on the radio, and an advertisement came on, and I heard the man say, "Have you checked your tires lately?" So that was this idea of the tire 3 times in a short period of time. So I pulled off the freeway, pulled into a gas station, and I asked the gas station attendant if he'd check my tires, and he came back and said, "Lady, you were really lucky. You could have had a blowout because that back tire is in bad shape." So it's learning to listen to those kind of seemingly coincidences or synchronicities. Another thing is to listen to the overhead expressions around you or conversations around you. If you are standing in line at the bank and you hear some people talking about going ahead on a project, and maybe you're thinking of a project and you don't know whether to go ahead with it or not, that could be a sign. The expressions you use can be a sign. I knew a man who always was saying, "I can't stomach this and I can't stomach that," and he went to the doctor and he had some very severe digestive problems that he wasn't aware of. So our expressions can be signs. There's lots of ways that signs can appear to us. They can appear in the injuries that you get, the accidents you have, the mistakes, the things you think you see that you don't see. All of those can be signs, or the things that happen in your life that seem unusual. You're walking in a pine forest and you find an acorn. That's unusual. If you're in an acorn forest, it's not. But, perhaps it was a coincidence, but perhaps there was a sign in finding that acorn. Every animal has a different meaning, and the meanings will change tribe to tribe or culture to culture. I recommend that people actually research their heritage, because often they will find that the signs that are speaking to them will come from their own heritage. There was a man who was from China, adopted as a baby, came to the States, but for him grasshoppers were always a really good sign. And he told his father, and he said, whenever he saw a grasshopper, he knew things were really good were going to happen to them. And his father said, "Oh no, grasshoppers are bad. They ruin the crops." But he went back to China and found that small area he was from, grasshoppers were a good sign. So that was an example of that being a sign that was passed down through his genes, if you will. There's 2 ways that signs can come into your life. One is what I call a reflection sign. And a reflection sign comes from the idea that the universe is always reflecting back to you what's occurring not in your conscious mind, but what's occurring within your subconscious self. For example, someone who sees only sad people everywhere they go, and they say, well, I don't feel sad, but everywhere they only see sadness, usually has some subconscious issues around sadness and grieving. Someone who sees only anger and angry people usually this is a sign, a reflection of something angry within them. But there's also what I call messenger signs, and messenger signs come from the Creator. They can come from angels. And I can remember my very first angel experience. I got into this whole field as a result of a near-death experience I had when I was 17. And I was laying in the intensive care unit, and I could feel a hand slip into my hand, and I looked to see who was holding my hand. And I couldn't see anybody, but then I tried to close my hand, and I couldn't because I could feel these fingers in the palm. And I felt such a sense of peace holding that hand, and I knew that was an angel. And since that time, I've had the opportunity to talk to people who've seen angels, to actually meet angels. And angels don't all have wings. And in fact, I've never seen an angel with wings on. But angels can come as a thought. They can come as an inspiration. They can also come in human form. I was sitting having coffee with someone once, and someone came down and sat with us, said, "Can I sit with you and join you?" And this individual turned to my friend and spoke to her with great clarity and wisdom, and then a few minutes later, we turned to look at her, and she was gone. And she wasn't in the coffee house, she wasn't down the road. It was like that quick. She disappeared. So I believe that those angel encounters are always around us, and they are there to give us information. And it might be that person who's standing next to you in the bus, or the person who sits next to you on the plane, or the person who stands next to you in line. That could be, it might look like a human form, but it might actually be an angel, and they might be giving you some a sign or something very valuable. There's an expression I use that if you don't listen to the whispers, you might have to hear the screams. And we are just not conditioned by our society or culture to observe the signs and to interpret the signs. But one thing that's exciting to me is a lot of credence is being given to dreams. And dreams, of course, are one way that signs come to us. Signs about our subconscious life, signs about our core beliefs, signs about our past, and also signs about our future. So I've written a couple of dream books, and I got very interested in dreams because I saw dreams were a incredible source of wisdom that anybody could access. But then it began to occur to me that those signs that come in our dreams are no less viable than the signs that are appearing to us in waking life. And in fact, the dreams that occur in waking life are a lot more direct and a lot more powerful in their impact on us. So I developed a system so that people could actually see what are those signs around me and what do they mean for me. I find that signs, because of my Native American heritage, they often come in nature, often I like to sit and be still and watch the way the clouds move and listen to the wind. And once a year I take people on a vision quest. And every person creates a sacred circle out of stones or twigs, and for 3 days and 3 nights sits in that circle, just watching. And when someone takes the time to still their mind, really remarkable things occur. I remember one woman who always wanted to be the kind of person that wild animals were afraid of. And a deer came up to the edge of her circle and then stepped in and laid its head against her head and then took its head back and just stared in her eyes and walked away. And so those kind of occurrences can come in nature, but they also come from other people. One time I was walking around the lake near my house, and I was thinking about angels. And a beautiful older black man in colorful clothes on roller skates came and roller skated around me and then roller skated backwards, looking at me. And he just said 2 things. He said, the only things that are important in life are the love of God and the love of other human beings. And then he roller skated on. So I think when the heart is open, the signs appear in many different forms. Well, there are different ways to interpret signs, and the idea of interpreting signs negatively could be like a superstition. But, for example, in the United States, if you see a black cat, that's a sign that you're going to have bad luck. But if you're in England and see a black cat, that's a sign you're going to have good luck. So I always say to find the most positive interpretation for the personal sign that you get. It depends on your personal history. For example, if when you're a child you were thrown by a horse, the horse might be a sign for you of danger, of impending danger, or for someone else the horse could be a sign of grace or strength. Well, there are signs. The circle universally represents wholeness and completion. The cross universally represents the divine aspect of God connecting heaven to earth. So there are some signs that are fairly universal. You know, there is something you can do, which is what I call designating signs. For me, the feathers are a sign for me. And this came because I had a teacher who was a Taos Indian. And when he was dying, his last words to me were, at Santa Fe Indian Hospital, were, "Wherever you go, wherever you are, I will be there." And after that, after his death, whenever I was at a turning point in my life, a feather would appear. And since that time, every time I see a feather, I take just a moment to stop, because it's a message to me. It's a message from Spirit. I know a woman who pennies are a designated sign for her. Whenever she sees a penny, she takes that moment to stop, and she knows there's a message for her. And you can either observe what your designated signs are, or you can actually designate a sign. Like someone can say, "Answer my sign." And so every time they see an ant, they'll know there's a message. Sometimes people have signs if they see 3 numbers in a row. One woman was picked up the phone and someone was asking her to go to a particular event, and at that moment the digital clock went up 222, and she saw that and thought, okay, I meant to go. So you can designate signs. Well, you can call for a sign. In the vision quest, what you're actually doing in a quest is you are sitting in that circle with nothing else to do, and you're calling for a sign. You know, Creator, Great Spirit, send me a sign. You know, what direction am I supposed to go in my life? So that's one way that you can actually just take the time to call for a sign. Sometimes even just something as simple as tossing a coin. Heads I'll go, you know, heads is the sign I'm supposed to go, tails it's not. If this company calls me in the next 3 hours, I'm meant to take the job. If they don't, I'm not. You know, we all do those kind of things, and that's a way of basically calling for a sign. But one thing I do have in the book is I created a sign dictionary, because lots of people were saying, how do I, you know, once I find my sign, how do I find out what it means? And there's no one definitive sign dictionary. But just as when you toss a coin and it goes heads, and you go, oh, I don't really want to do that. You know, it's a way of getting you clear on your innate wisdom. So the great thing about a sign dictionary is you can look it up and you can say, yes, that feels right, or no, it doesn't. Or you can even just run your fingers along the columns and kind of pre-program yourself to say, okay, these are now my meanings, because the brain's like a computer. We do have an innate sense, just as if you don't know, what do I do this or do I do that, and you toss the coin and you say, heads I go, you know, to the company picnic, and you get the heads and you go, oh, 2 out of 3. It's because it allows you to get clear on what you actually do want to do. Well, ants are very industrious, and so if you continue to see ants all the time, it might be a sign that you need to become more industrious in your life. Well, balloons would be universally, you know, uplifting. They usually people have balloons during parties and when they're celebrating something. So if you keep seeing balloons, it might be a time of just getting ready to take off, to go, to enjoy yourself. It could be a sign of celebration. Have fun in life. cactus can indicate maybe a prickly situation, and or maybe you're in a prickly situation, or maybe there's a prickly situation you need to stay away from. Well, every color has a different symbology, and it's interesting because the symbology is fairly universal around the world. Red universally represents vitality, or it can represent danger. Green universally is a healing color. It's the balance between the cool colors and the warm colors. Blue, soothing, meditative, sleep and stillness. So the colors are very universal. Well, it's the same. I mean, lavender is very soothing. Orange is stimulating. And again, it's interesting the way that color and smell dovetails, because the smell of orange stimulates conversation, but the color orange stimulates communication. So if you want to have a room where you want to stimulate communication, paint it a shade of orange. And to further enhance that, spray a aromatherapy or have aromatherapy in the room that smells like orange. A couple of days ago, I gave a talk, and a woman came to me and she said, I just got a sign of wolf. And, you know, wolf to me it's a very good sign for families, because wolves are very family-oriented. And wolf medicine, what I call wolf medicine, will be an energy that speaks of family. And I had a whole table full of angel cards. And I said, just pick one of these. And she reached down and she picked one and put it down. And I said, well, what did it say? And she said, birth. And her husband had just picked up one, and he'd picked up, out of all the 50, he'd picked up birth. So here, both of these people who had evidently just gotten married, they got 2 birth cards, and she saw the sign of a wolf, which to me says that there's the potentiality for a family. So, because it kind of made that sign even more powerful. For me, drums are the way that I talk to God. They allow me to enter into the unseen realms. In Native American communities, the drum was called the horse or the canoe, because on that rhythm, on that beat, you could travel into the unseen realms. And for me, drums are holy. They are a sacred way of communicating with the Creator. And I feel a deep affinity with the realm of drum. Well, feathers are a personal sign for me. They're what I call a designated sign for me, that every time I see a feather, I know that that feather is a message from Spirit. But also, they were thought to be, in Native traditions, the connection between us and the Creator. And you'll notice, for example, in some tribes, they would wear the feather on top of their head. And in the middle of the feather, it's hollow. And I can't help but think that that energy from that chief's head is going up through that feather to Spirit, and Spirit could come down through that quill into that chief. Well, you know, it's interesting about moths. If you think about a moth will keep beating itself up against a screen, trying to get to the light. And for me personally, if I kept seeing moths, I would wonder if maybe there wasn't another way around. You know, I remember seeing a moth once beating itself against a screen, and all it needed to do was just fly down 3 inches to go underneath the screen to get up to the light or where it was going. And it was a place where I couldn't help it. I couldn't go help it around. So if I saw a moth, I'd think, find another way. Quit beating yourself up. You know, there's another way around. You know, owls are interesting in in some cultures, they're feared. When I was with the Aborigines, I remember an old Aboriginal elder telling me, he said, the men are afraid of owls because it's the female totem. It represents the darkness and the unknown. And traditionally, throughout the world, the owl does represent the unknown realms and the darkness, just as the eagle represents the light. It also represents ancient wisdom. Athena has the owl on her shoulder, that Merlin had his owl. So it is universally a symbol of wisdom and the unknown. Eagle represents, in many native cultures, the Great Spirit, the Creator, that ability to see far in all directions, the visionary. Well, popcorn can be, a sparking of ideas and new thoughts and activating that kind of creative spirit inside of you.
And rice?
Well, rice in our culture usually can symbolize celebration. It's what you throw the rice to the it's not, they don't do that anymore, but they used to throw rice when people were married to wish them abundance in their marriage. So it can represent fruition. Spirituality to me is understanding that life is not as always as it seems, that there is an underlying energy called the Creator that pervades all things, and it's a search for that, for that wondrous unknown place that dwells inside of all of us. I can't speak for other people. I can only speak for myself. And the way that I could be more spiritual is to spend more time in nature, being quiet. And that's one of the reasons why I developed the Vision Quest, is because I found that when someone takes time just to be quiet and still their mind, that an automatic outcome of the Vision Quest is when you are spending time in nature and being still, that you find that the Creator is within all things.
What is you kind of mentioned Vision Quest a few times.
Well, Vision Quest is taking time to go out into nature in a very ritualized, ceremonious way of being still, creating a sacred circle, sitting in that circle 3 days, 3 nights, nothing else to do except to talk to the Creator, to talk to that Spirit. And to find out really important things, such as who am I? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? What are my values? And I think that because we're so rushing headlong into our life, that we don't take the time to ask these really important questions. And I think they're important for every human being to answer for themselves.
And I guess if someone doesn't have that kind of ability to stay for free, they could always do a half hour a day or something.
They could do, in my book Quest, I realize that not everybody can have 3 days and 3 nights, but you can take an afternoon and go sit by yourself someplace in nature. You can even do it in your home. Unplug the phone, put a not home sign, and just sit inside a room being quiet and listening to your heart. That it doesn't always have to be so arduous and difficult, that there's ways that you can create a modified quest for yourself. Well, I think not just science, but anything that is honoring that native wisdom, to begin to reconnect with our roots, reconnect with the land, to begin to reignite with our innate wisdom that dwells within us, that can be activated by living on the land. I think all of that is important.